Welcome back to the studio. It's time now for Media Watch, and I'm joined for that in studio as ever by James Creedon. Good evening to you,
Good evening,
James.
Catherine.
We're going to start off with a very controversial magazine cover here in France from the weekly magazine Le Point. Their headline and their photo of choice have caused a lot of ripples.
Yes, let's take a look at that front page. Le Point, cet Islam sans gêne, or this shameless Islam, and a choice of photo from a demonstration, I think it was earlier this year, a blue-eyed woman in a full covering veil, right? Now, some saying the choice of a woman with blue eyes, is this to sort of indicate that that some people are converting, that this is a religion that is now becoming too present in France, and they point out that it gênes, or it causes trouble in hospitals, canteens, swimming pools, over dresses, etc., etc., etc.
A very controversial issue and a very controversial way of treating it, I guess.
That's right, and I suppose saying a shameless for Islam is some were saying, well, does that mean that it's
why should Islam be ashamed?
Exactly. Now, just to show you some of the reaction, as is often the case now, you have satirical reactions online, and I think often that's a pretty appropriate way to respond to an excessive front page. So here you have, this Catholicism sans gêne, Judaism with sans gêne, in other words, why just Islam, these black people who are not ashamed, gay people who are not ashamed. That's actually a photo that got a lot of media attention last week, when on front of a demonstration these two girls, who weren't gay at all in fact, decided to kiss. So it's in any case, that was one way of, I suppose, responding to this controversial issue. Also, some people pointing out on social media that there are quite a few front pages in France that tend to perhaps try to sell copy on this whole issue of Islam, and perhaps a certain degree of fear-mongering. Le Point just last year, in February, had another similar front page called The Spectre of, well, that's the Islamist spectre, so I suppose a slight nuance there. And I thought, quite interestingly, when you do Google search on the front page cover headline, you actually come up with a lot of the mock-ups more than you come up with the actual, what would you say, the original front page
cover itself.
Which reminded me actually of the Newsweek story, Muslim Rage, right? Now, these kind of excessive or perhaps overly fear-mongering front pages of news magazines, that was just a couple of months ago in Newsweek, they tend to provoke a lot of satirical responses online, which is often humour, perhaps the best way of dealing with something that people judge excessive.
The best form of defence, but it's also a good way of making waves and getting a buzz around your magazine.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure that's not lost on the editors and the publishers.
Certainly not.
All right, changing the subject now onto the reaction from Sandy, and there's been a bit of a backlash and criticism against clothing chains in the US, which have been seen to be jumping on the bandwagon there of the storm.
In particular, Catherine, American Apparel, the clothing chain, US clothing chain. Take a look at this ad, if we can get a close-up on it. In case you're bored during the storm, 20% off everything for the next 36 hours.
Might be difficult to get out to a shop in the states in question.
This is it. I mean, maybe they didn't think of that. And only in the states affected. So this was really targeting, people affected by Hurricane Sandy, and they called it the Sandy Sale. And the whole idea is that, come take shelter in our shop and buy some stuff.
It's nice, cashing in on the misery of millions of people.
Misery. Sandy Fail, as Time newsfeed called it. Forbes magazine also very critical of it. And just to show you some reaction, a couple of screenshots of tweets. I just received a Hurricane Sandy email. I will boycott their store forever, says this one person. Another person here talking about, was it a 22-year-old intern who came up with it? Now, Gap also got a certain amount of criticism for a tweet. All impacted by Sandy, stay safe. We'll be doing lots of Gap.com shopping today. So some people saying it's just inappropriate to link a hurricane with a sales pitch, even on Twitter. Gap did actually apologise for that. So a lot of criticism for people trying to cash in on a lot of misery and suffering, really.
Understandably, really, I guess we could say. Meanwhile, Halloween. It is Halloween.
That's
in
right.
France, but in one town, the mayor is not having any of it, and he's actually banned a zombie parade.
That's right. No zombie parades in Puy-en-Velay. Now, I'll show you the minister first. This is the former minister, Laurent Wauquiez.
He's not a fan of Halloween.
Not a fan of Halloween, and this was set to happen on the 4th of November. So it's, his excuse was, you've got All Souls Day, All Saints Day. These are, family occasions. You don't want a zombie demonstration messing that up.
What are zombies demonstrating against?
Well, I think they're just demonstrating for just having a bit of a laugh. Let's take a look at some pictures of a zombie demonstration earlier this year in Grenoble. Now, it is kind of scary if you're very easily scared, but it's also just a bit ridiculous. And they call it a zombie walk. I think in a few minutes we have shots of them getting a little bit violent with a Grenoble tramway. So you could say that they're just maybe troublemakers generally, and but I don't think Puy-en-Velay has a tramway, so I'm not sure.
That's not a risk. The undead are not going to take over the tramway, but they could cause
the
offence,
Puy-en-Velay underground system, right? That's
Okay.
in the Loire Valley for people who aren't aware. So there you go. There'll be no zombie parades.
Zombies head elsewhere. I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there.
All
Thanks
right.
very much,
Thanks, Catherine.
James Creedon with Media Watch. Well, it's time now to take a look at what's been making more waves online. It's web news.